Good evening. I'd like to call the special council meeting of Monday, July 18th, 2022 to order. First off, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll start with the report. Integrity Commission report, IC 16634-0222. Good evening, Michael. Nice to see you.
Good evening. Thank you. It's nice to see you all as well. So if I can go ahead, Mayor.
Absolutely, go right ahead.
Okay. Thank you. There was a pregnant pause there for a moment, so I wasn't sure if that was my cue to go or you had more to say. So I've obviously produced a report for you. I know it was on your agenda at your last regular council meeting. I apologize I wasn't able to be there that evening. I was away out of town on something that had been pre-booked.
Can you speak up just a little bit? We can't hear you very well. All right, thank you.
How's this?
That's better.
Okay, I'll bring my microphone up. Sorry, it might obscure my face lately, but I think that I apologize I wasn't able to last meeting when this matter was first brought on the agenda. I was out of town on holiday, actually, something that had been booked significantly in advance of this item being on the agenda. So I wasn't able to attend. I appreciate that you're able to do it this evening, and I'm glad that I'm able to be here for it. I don't really have anything to add other than, the report is before you. It's fairly significant, quite lengthy, and I would suggest very detailed. And it should provide you all the information you need to make a decision. However, I'm here to answer any questions. If something requires some clarity, I'm happy to do that. But otherwise, I would suggest that the report speaks for itself, and I advance it for your consideration. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you very much for your report. And right now, I'd like to participate in the debate. So I'd like to relinquish the chair and have Councillor Ritchie as a deputy mayor take my position, because I have a motion to read that I'd like to read right now. I'm the mover, and I have Councillor Frake as the seconder.
Point of order to the clerk. Through the mayor to the clerk.
Go ahead.
So as our procedure says that the mayor can't participate in the debate unless he leaves the chair, but it doesn't say that he can move a motion if he leaves the chair. So our procedure says that he has to leave the chair to participate, but it also says that the mayor may not move or second a motion. So the mayor, go ahead.
See you, Chair. So once he steps down, he would be considered as a member of council, and then he could move. So he's not currently the chair. Only the chair cannot move.
Could you just get me the spot in where it says the mayor and not the chair? Because I think it says the mayor.
Through you, Mr. Chair, he is a mayor, but he stepped down as a role of the chair. So he is also a chair so when we say mayor, we're talking about his official capacity, but when he steps down as a chair for running these meetings, he would also be considered as a member of council, and currently he stepped down as chair, so he can move the motion. I think the confusion is his role as a mayor and the chair.
The way I read it, it says the mayor can't move or second a motion.
So when we're in this meeting, he's currently stepped down as the role of the mayor and chair.
All right. So I'll ask the deputy mayor, what does he think?
Yeah. Sarah, this mic's not working. Oh, there it goes. All right.
So thank you for the point of order. We've heard from the clerk, and I will agree with the clerk on this matter.
Thank you. I'll read the resolution now. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Frake. whereas a member of council is held by virtue of their office to a higher ethical standard of behavior and subject to the principles and rules set forth in the Town of Grimsby's Code of Conduct, and whereas it has been determined by the Integrity Commissioner that Councillor Sharp participated in, supported, broadcasted, and promoted an illegal occupation in the City of Ottawa, and whereas the Integrity Commissioner concluded that Councillor Sharp, through those actions, contravened Sections 4.1A, D, E, and 14.2 of the Code of Conduct, and whereas an email on a separate matter from a complainant in that investigation addressed to council and the town's CAO was distributed by Councillor Sharp to a person or persons unknown. And whereas that email and identifying information about the complainant was subsequently circulated to a protest group's social media page, resulting in harassment, abuse, and defamation of the complainant. And whereas Councillor Sharp would have known or ought to have known that circulating the email would be detrimental to the complainant and their privacy. And whereas Councillor Sharp obstructed the Integrity Commissioner's investigation into the circulation of that email and the issue of reprisal. And whereas Council and the Town of Grimsby respects residents' diverse viewpoints and supports their right to privacy and right to be free from harassment. And whereas the totality of Councillor Sharp's actions in this matter are egregious, not consistent with Council's guiding principles, and reflect negatively upon Council and the municipality. Therefore, be it resolved that Council receive the Integrity Commissioner's investigation report IC 16634-0222, an addendum dated July 2nd, 2022, and that as per Section 233.45 of the Municipal Act 2001, a suspension of Councillor Sharp's remuneration as member be imposed for a period of 90 days.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Frake? Councillor Frake, seconder. Thank you. So I have a question to all of council here. Does everybody have a copy of this motion before them? No, then I'd like to take a 10-minute recess to get a copy for everybody. Or you're going to take a 10-minute recess. Welcome back. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. Before we proceed, though, I just wanted to read a little bit of decorum on council and committee meetings. Meetings will maintain a welcoming, inclusive atmosphere at all times, regardless of the individual's perspective. All participants shall be treated with respect and courtesy, and the following rules of decorum shall apply to meetings. A, conducted in a manner that encourages open dialogue and a free exchange of ideas. B, all participants are responsible for maintaining an orderly meeting, free from incident or insulting language, name-calling, assigning blame, personal attacks, or condemning the motives of others. C, no participant shall engage in disruptive or distracting behavior in such manner as to interrupt the meeting in any manner. D, no member of the public may debate with staff or make derogatory remarks to staff. E, all comments shall be directed to the chair and then to the appropriate councillor or staff member for comment as appropriate. F, no participant shall interrupt or distract a person who has the floor. Any member may interrupt only to raise a point of order. G, any participant persisting in a breach of decorum will receive a warning from the chair. Continued breach may result in the microphones being turned off and/or the participant being asked to leave the meeting. And now I'd like to open the floor. We have a motion in front of us. I'd like to open up the floor for debate. Councillor Sharp.
There's a point of information. I'm wondering, because this was just brought to me right now, how much is a 90-day suspension? To the clerk, could she ask the treasurer or someone from finance? So my rough math, like I'm looking, it looks like it's about $5,375. About that. So 15 days would have been around $900, and 90 days would be about $5,375. Could the clerk confirm that, or the mayor? I mean, he made the motion. Can the mayor confirm how much that is?
Majority of an answer, or you do?
90 days would be $5,312.
Councillor Frake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for Mr. Maynard. With the 90-day or 15-day suspension, whatever we decide on tonight, does that also include suspension from council meetings as well, or is it just suspension of pay? Just to clarify, does one go with the other?
Through the chair, no, it's a suspension of remuneration, not a suspension of duties.
Okay, just want to clarify that. Can I continue, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Anyways, I did second the motion with wholeheartedly, and I do agree that we need to make it a reasonable penalty that actually makes sense, and that states the point. I just want to read something. I'd like to add that this behavior by Councillor Sharp is not only a serious breach of Council's code of conduct and confidentiality policy, but also a serious breach of trust awarded to him by the people we represent. Finished. He also took it upon himself to physically attend the Freedom Convoy activities in Ottawa, not once but several times. He participated in the illegal occupation protest in front of our country's seat of parliament, which interfered with people's civic rights and freedom of movements, as well as the daily commerce of downtown Ottawa. Merchants lost business income. People were scared to walk the streets.
Could I have order, please? 1 second. Councillor Frake, 1 minute. Can I have order, please? Again, I read the order of decorum out beforehand, and as I would like to see everyone give respect for everyone's points of view, whether you agree with it or do not agree with it. And when this comes to an end, then council will make a decision. Right now, we're just doing individuals' personal opinions, so please let them have the floor and let's be quiet. Thank you.
Just in case people didn't hear, I said, people were scared to walk the streets. Municipal services were impeded. Children had to stay inside. All of these activities showed a total disregard for the municipal laws of Ottawa as well as the laws of the province. We have received a lengthy and detailed 38-page investigation by Mr. Maynard, and we have heard from him. To refresh your memory, I'll just mention some of the excerpts. The breach of Grimsby's council code of conduct on numerous occasions, was dishonest and uncooperative towards the IC Commissioner's investigation, broke the rules of confidentiality by disclosing information from a resident's email, claimed to represent the town's views and policy when in fact they were his own personal views, total disregard for the rights and well-being of residents and merchants of Ottawa, and the list does go on. We shouldn't allow these infractions to be swept under the provisional rug and forgotten. It's our duty and our responsibility as representatives of the town of Grimsby and this province to enforce a reasonable penalty and not just a slap on the wrist. So I totally do endorse what Mayor Jordan has put forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'll rest there.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp, or sorry, Councillor Frake. Councillor Vardy.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Well, first let me say it's really great to see so many people come to council in person. Since we've been open, we've had very few people come in, and so I really am glad to see so many people participating in our democracy. And let me say that I take no issue with Councillor Sharp's personal beliefs. I understand well this issue and how important and divisive it is. My own son lost his job as a commercial pilot because he refused vaccination. So I know the kind of personal toll it takes on people. That said, where I lived in Ottawa for 30 years, I have many friends, and they told me that it was intolerable. And because my friends live close to downtown, well, I see a man shaking his head, but these are what people telling me firsthand. And one of them is actually legally blind, and she said it was just impossible. The public expects maturity, good judgment, and law-abiding behavior from its councillors. And I don't think that's what Councillor Sharp has demonstrated here. Furthermore, lying to the Integrity Commissioner and then telling the truth about passing on an email that he received from a resident.
Point of order has been called. 1 minute. Councillor Barty, go ahead. Councillor Sharp.
The councillor is suggesting that I lied to the Integrity Commissioner.
Could I get a clarification? Could I get a clarification from the Integrity Commissioner? Because as I read the report, it said that he told him first he did not pass on the email and then later on admitted to it. Did I read that correctly?
Mr. Maynard?
No, Commissioner.
Hello. Yes, to the chair. What didn't exactly occur in that manner, as I recollected and as I reflected in the report. I think I had asked the councillor about his knowledge of a particular group, and he sort of gave a vague answer to that. When I asked him straightforwardly whether he had released the contents of the email, he acknowledged having done so immediately.
So I'd like to clarify.
I withdraw the comment of lying. I apologize to Councillor Sharp. That said, he did refuse to provide the Integrity Commissioner with relevant information with respect to this email, with his response being, quote, "I don't want to." So that speaks to my comments about maturity and owning your behavior. The councillor knowing, or should have known, this would have a backlash on the resident, which it did. And this can only be interpreted as an act of reprisal. And it can only be interpreted by me.
Councillor Vardy, 1 minute. Councillor Sharp, point of order is called.
This was not found to be an act of reprisal. It was not.
I see Maynard, do you have can you offer some input to that? Did you make a decision on reprisal in your report?
Through you, Chair, I declined to make a decision on reprisal at this time because the investigation was already lengthy and quite complicated, and because I was denied essentially evidence which I felt would speak to that. And given that I didn't have that evidence before me, I didn't feel I was in the best position to make that determination at this time.
So I see, Maynard, so you did not rule there was reprisal, correct?
That is correct. I did not make a decision on reprisal.
If I may continue then, I could only say a reasonable person would know that by providing that email, it would have a backlash on the resident, a negative backlash, which in the end it did. The resident was subjected to abuse, verbal abuse, and to my mind, that's not acceptable behavior for anyone, let alone a councillor. So again, just say I don't take issue with his beliefs, but I take issue with his, with how he has acted in this instance. So for that reason, I agree with the 90 days.
Thank you, Councillor Vardy. Councillor Vane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really wasn't planning on saying too much to this tonight, but I have to admit I have to respond to some of these things here. I appreciate Councillor Vardy withdrawing her comment about the lying. Councillor Frake did call Councillor Sharp dishonest, and I'm assuming it's the same thing. So I have a number of things here. First of all, the obstruction. It was a word that was used by Mr. Maynard. Obstruction, I can't find it at the moment, but the law says that a person does not have to incriminate themselves. So Mr. Maynard asked, Councillor Sharp said no, that's a request. I don't believe there was any obstruction there per se. Actually, if you look up the terminology of obstruction, in R versus Ballsden of 1968, it was held that following two doctrines, I'm not going to read the Latin, I can't read Latin, no man can be compelled to incriminate himself and no one is bound to betray himself. That is part of the Criminal Code of Canada. So obstruction, while Mr. Maynard may have felt that Mr. Sharp or Councillor Sharp was making his job more difficult, that's fine. A police officer can ask to search your car. Doesn't mean he has the right to do it. So if you feel you're going to incriminate yourself, you don't have to give authorization for that. So illegal action, I'm still a little thrown on this one when I believe Mr. Maynard even said it in his report. I'm just trying to remember. I've read the report a few days ago. He talked about an illegal action, as did Councillor Vardy and Councillor Frake, I believe. Yet two courts ruled the action was not illegal. So I'm a little confused where everybody's getting this idea that this was an illegal action. Two judges, two honorable judges have decided it was not illegal.
Point of order.
Councillor Vane. Go ahead, Councillor Vardy.
I never used the word illegal. Thank you.
All right, noted. Thank you. But my point is that the Integrity Commissioner, Mr. Maynard, did use it actually in the report. But as I stated, there was two courts that ruled that this was not an illegal action. I agree with a lot of the comments that were made by both Councillor Vardy and Councillor Frake, that a lot of people were inconvenienced, a lot of people were disrupted. I heard some horrible, horrible things that were said to people by some others. The only problem is that I didn't hear a single word that was said by Councillor Sharp that was offensive or whatever. Councillor Sharp merely took his family to Ottawa. There was the protest going on. Councillor Sharp did not organize the protest. Councillor Sharp did not go and do anything and get arrested for it or whatever else. So to pin the whole thing on Councillor Sharp is a bit of a stretch. I really think we are kind of stretching here a bit. You know, to claim that, you know, all this stuff is so horrible that Councillor Sharp did that by exercising his rights. Well, I don't buy that. As far as the intent to harass, Councillor Sharp has stated he didn't intend to harass. I don't believe Mr. Maynard found any proof that it was an intent to harass. As far as sharing the letter and that, and I come back to Councillor Vardy's own comment about owning behaviors. Well, I believe this other council members have done far more serious infractions, and yet we seem to want to hang Councillor Sharp for his. He didn't take any information from a private meeting and share it with someone that we were looking at having further looks at, or investigations, or whatever you want to call it, as the mayor did. Councillor Vardy has 3 allegations of sexual harassment. And yet,
Point of order.
Point of order has been called. Councillor Vardy.
That is completely irrelevant and untrue and really disgraceful of Councillor Vane.
Councillor Vane, the statements you've made have never actually been proven, and so I'm going to ask you to retract your statements.
I'll retract them. I didn't say anything been proven. I said they've been made. The allegations were made.
Point of order. Can you please put a stop to this,
Yeah, I'm going to ask you, Councillor Vane, just to not talk about that topic. Let's stay on topic on the matter of hand, which is the IC report. Thank you.
And that's fine. But again, going back to the mayor's actions.
Just another point of order, please. Point of order.
So
Point of order. Councillor Vane, point of order has been called. Mayor Jordan.
Councillor Vane's talking about an investigation which was concluded, and it happened, and it's totally irrelevant right now.
Or is it irrelevant?
I think, point of order, Mr. Chair. I think that if Councillor Vane continues on this vein, you should cut him off.
Yeah, you probably would. It would be better for them to cover it up that way.
Councillor Vane.
Councillor Vane, please. You're way off
Councillor
topic.
Frake. I have the floor here. Councillor Vane. I'm going to ask you to stay on topic, please.
I was, but I will continue on.
We'll refrain from bringing up other IC complaints. Let's stay in regards to this IC complaint. Thank you.
Okay, but it's hard to look at one IC complaint when there's similar or more serious charges in other ones that were not dealt with as harshly, and yet we're trying to hang a councillor.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. He's still going on with this.
No, I'm making a point. I'm not going on with anything. I'm not talking about anybody.
Order. Councillor Frake, I've heard. Councillor Frake, I've heard the point of order. Again, I'm going to allow Councillor Vane to make his point as long as he refrains from trying to bring up other IC reports where the specific names and specific instances are used. Thank you.
That's fine. No, I think the best point that anybody's made, and I'm not getting riled up out of this, and I didn't feel it necessary to interrupt anybody else when they made their opinions. But anyways, I just think, you know what, this is something that is up to Councillor Sharp. If he feels he's done something wrong, then allow him to apologize. I think it's up to the voters to decide if he's done anything serious, as I think the voters will decide on other things. I mean, it's just, we're trying to make a mountain out of a molehill here. And I just, Councillor Sharp went to Ottawa. He was at a protest. He happened to support it. He did a bunch of things. As far as the letter, it was never ruled on. I can't make any comments on that. And to try and pull that out of the air is just not right, in my opinion. But anyways, I'm not going to support hanging him for this when there's been far more aggressive things or obstructive things. Anyways, that's my opinion, and that's where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vane. We'll have Mayor Jordan speak.
Thank you. Through your chair to Mr. Maynard. A couple questions for you. So what was your basis for finding that Councillor Sharp obstructed the investigation?
So council members, through the chair, council members are, required to participate in this process by virtue of the fact that you have a code of conduct and an integrity commissioner, to enforce the code of conduct. There's a specific section in your code that actually deals with this, and it says, and I put it in the report, page 31, that members of council are not to obstruct the integrity commissioner or any other municipal official involved in applying or furthering the objectives or requirements of the code in carrying out such responsibilities or pursuing any such objective. So the word obstruct is actually included right in the code itself, and that's why it was referenced, because as I mentioned in the report, I had asked for information which was integral to an issue that I was looking into. I was told by the councillor that he wasn't going to provide it because he didn't want to. In my view, that isn't a reasonable reason to deny information as part of an integrity commissioner's request during an investigation. And so I looked to that section of the code and I felt that that was sort of what was happening. However, I also did not, continue on through, that part of the investigation. I simply found on the basis of the original complaint.
Thank you. Just a couple more questions through the chair. So for the potential reprisal investigation that was cut short because you were denied the evidence, who denied the evidence?
The respondent, Councillor Sharp.
All right. And then just a couple more questions. Again, through the chair. Did Councillor Sharp break the confidentiality of the IC process by distributing an email from a complainant to persons outside the investigation?
Again, through the chair. And so far as I'm aware, the email in question wasn't specifically related to this investigation. It was related to another matter.
Okay, thank you. So, if I can continue, just where I got the basis of the penalty. So penalty level 1, he attended, promoted the illegal occupation in Ottawa. Penalty 2, there could be no good faith in the sharing of the email. And penalty 3, he obstructed the investigation and actually allowed it not to continue and not to be finished, where potentially he could have violated more sections of the IC code and code of conduct and the Municipal Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Councillor Cabell? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Personally, I've read through this many times since we received the report. Following what happened in Ottawa, I don't endorse that at all. With everything that went on in Ottawa, question I do have is to Mr. Maynard. Your recommendation is 15 days suspension. And how did you come to that? I know the report is all in here, but obviously the other recommendation is up to 90 days. So how did you come to just 15 days rather than 90 days?
Through the chair, thanks for your question. Yep, through the chair, thanks for your question. I made reference in here to, the things that, a decision maker might consider when making that sort of a recommendation. And I've listed them on page 36, I believe. The sanctions are normally progressive in their severity. They depend on the experience of the councillor. They depend on how flagrant the behavior was, and also whether there was any acknowledgement of wrongdoing, remorse, or regret. Now, at that stage in the process, whether there was any acknowledgement of wrongdoing, remorse, or regret, it was going to be hard to tell, obviously, because it was still being carried out at that point, this investigative process. I had noted that I had not previously recommended that any sort of financial sanction against the councillor, and I don't believe, insofar as I'm aware, that that's ever been applied to the councillor before. But I did find that the issue was flagrant, which I noted in the report, and so I decided that somewhat of a steeper penalty would be more appropriate in those circumstances, because I was specifically applying point C, flagrant.
Thank you. That's it for now. Thank you.
Councillor Dunstall.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to, I guess, Mr. Maynard, I'm having trouble hearing you clearly, so if I could ask you to repeat what the issues were that were flagrant, in your opinion, that Councillor Sharp did, so that I got a clear understanding. And this is why you decided to penalize the councillor the 15-day pay.
Sure. So again, through the chair, and I hope you can hear now, I put my mic up to my face, so I apologize that my face is slightly obscured, but hopefully this will allow you to hear me a little bit better. I'm not sure if there's anything else I can do to fix my sound, but I mentioned the word flagrant throughout the report in several places. I found that it was flagrant because of his, what I found to be disregard, and this is just quoting from the report, disregard for the rights and well-being of downtown Ottawa residents and for the laws and proclamations of police and the governments of the City of Ottawa and the Province of Ontario. I noted that, and again in the report, I noted that the councillor returned numerous times, even after knowing that the Premier of Ontario, for example, and I would presume knowing that the Ottawa Mayor as well had declared states of emergency in Ottawa and across the province, that the issue had been referred to as illegal and unlawful and in occupation numerous times by law enforcement, who also indicated that they were having difficulty enforcing the law, which is not the same thing as it not being unlawful or illegal. It can be unlawful or illegal and just not enforced because of an incapability to do that, and that's what police had suggested. And so I given the statements that the councillor made in his videos, it was apparent to me that he was aware of these things and that he continued with the conduct anyway. And for that reason, and the fact that he went back numerous times, I found it to be flagrant, therefore warranting of the recommendation. I would also add, again, as I also said in the report, that council is self-governing and is capable of deciding the penalty for itself. This is only a recommendation.
Yeah, I understand that. It's just a recommendation, but you said in your report, too, that he didn't do any illegal acts while he was there. Is that correct? So his being there and showing support for the Freedom Convoy was the flagrancy that you see, not the fact that he was there. He wasn't honking his horn. He wasn't participating in anything personally illegal, but you found that by going there, especially after this state of emergency was declared, that was flagrant, and that's why you ruled that way. Am I reading it correctly? That he didn't, the council really didn't do anything other than videotape some 37 short videos or whatever they were, and I respect you for reviewing them and making your conclusions on those videos. We haven't seen them. We have no idea what the content was, but we appreciate your professionalism in that and making your conclusions. But was he actually doing anything other than obstructing the residents and the commerce that was going on there? But I think he did give some commerce there. He stayed in a hotel. He probably ate meals there. So there's a bit of a conflict there in the sense that he was actually spending a lot of dollars there. I think he probably, if maybe the councillor can tell us how much he spent while he was there in Ottawa. How much did Councillor Sharp spend? Can you remember, Councillor Sharp?
Councillor Sharp.
There were some nights where I paid $400 a night. There were other nights where I paid $250 a night. There were nights when I paid $150 a night. I also ate in Ottawa, and I parked underground, and I paid for the underground parking.
And Mr. Maynard, you did say that this is a complicated case. This is not easy. And the motion we have on the floor right now is, I would call it black and white. It's pretty clear that we're just not very happy with Councillor Sharp and his behavior, and we want to throw him the maximum penalty and discredit him on earning any income from us for a period of 90 days. I find that harsh. What is your observation of the 90 days, or what is your opinion on this 90-day suspension of income? Do you say it's, your recommendation was 15. Do you stay with 15?
Well, my recommendation is in my report, and before council. I'm not going to comment or editorialize on that.
Fair.
I would simply say that my recommendation is what it is, but council, being self-governing, has the authority to vary that, reject it, or accept it.
Okay. I'm not finished. So we didn't have an investigation on the email, so really I don't see the relevance in it at this point in time. You mentioned in your report too that this would be a good learning opportunity for all members of council, and I gotta agree with you. I've probably never had to deal with something like this before. I don't think any of us have. In fact, it's a very unusual set of circumstances. I don't think we've ever seen anything like what we saw, where trucks started in Vancouver and ended up in Ottawa, and then decided to stay there for several weeks. Well, I guess it was history in the making, and I guess with Councillor Sharp's passion for what he believes in, it maybe he got caught up in it. And I guess sometimes it's not easy to keep the code of conduct as much as we like to think when we take that oath to office, when we first are elected, that it can be challenging sometimes. So I think that I like the fact that we have a young councillor here who decided to run for council back in 2018, and it's demonstrated a certain amount of integrity throughout the last 4 years. And he has his own views on things, and sometimes we can't always agree. And I think that maybe I can see through this report that he kind of sticks to his guns, and sometimes he sticks his heels in the ground, and he doesn't like to move on his beliefs. But I think it's a little on the harsh side to suggest that he lose any pay at this time. And I think the voters will decide whether he was really did something really wrong. And I think that, as it was suggested in this report, that an apology for what he has done with these complainants, they've felt like they've been offended, and so be it. And when you offend somebody, the best thing to do is apologize. And to lose pay, I don't know. I'm not. It is very complicated. I do not see it black and white. There's a lot of things that are still going on with the pandemic that we sure haven't got the answers for, and it's created a lot of divisiveness throughout our communities at large. So I think, and we've seen lots of politicians up in Ottawa. Our Conservative candidates for the federal Conservative Party have been up there, and I don't know if they were doing videos or that, but I think that I think it did.
Councillor Johnson, just so you know, I think on this matter that I'm going to be lenient and allow you to continue past the 10-minute mark. I think that everything needs to be heard.
I've been hearing bells in my head. Is that really bells, or is that?
Yeah, that's the time limit to speaking, but I'm going to allow additional conversation.
Thank you, Chair. It's very thoughtful. Anyhow, it is getting tougher and tougher to get young people in this, anywhere, in any community, to get out and serve like Councillor Sharp has served, and he's already registered to run again. And if the residents of Ward 2 do not want him as a councillor, they won't vote for him, and that'll be the end of it. It's too close to election time to penalize somebody to this extent. I don't think it's ever been done before, as it was mentioned, so I won't support this motion unless it's amended, because I think it's too harsh. Thank you.
Councillor Sharp?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I've written a few things down, and if I don't get them this round, I'll get them in the next. But, so I just want to start, and I want to say that I did go to the protests in Ottawa, and I was not an organizer, and I didn't even drive in with the trucks. I came like in my minivan, and I reserved a hotel. The first I stayed at a Marriott hotel, and then I stayed at a Sheraton hotel. They were in the that downtown parliamentary district. They were like 400 and 500 meters away from the Parliament Hill. So I wasn't like out and around in areas of Ottawa. I went for a walk over to the Byward Market, but in general I stayed in that parliamentary precinct where I thought it was an appropriate place to go and protest to the federal government. And I parked underground. I paid to park underground. It was expensive, $28 a day or something. And I was on level 3, and I didn't block the roads, and I didn't blow my horns to harass anyone. But just whether it was for harassing or not, I didn't do it. And so when it comes to the reprisal, what the Integrity Commissioner was asking for was my Facebook Messenger messages. So I don't even know exactly how to download my Facebook Messenger messages. I suppose maybe I could screenshot them. I delete them as they go. He said, did you send this? And I said, I didn't send the email. I copied from the email, and I sent it, I think, via Facebook Messenger. You know, the Integrity Commissioner gave me a short amount of notice for an interview, and then I was on the phone with him around lunchtime during the day, and he asked me for this, and I said no. And then he said, well, why not? I said, well, I just don't want to. I don't know. And I said that to him. And it was information that I didn't want to give to him. I don't know if I even have it. And so I did share an email that a resident sent me regarding protests at the Oaks Road Bridge. And the resident compared those protests at Oaks Road to a protest that a resident held at the Royal Bank downtown. And I shared the content of the email with the group that was protesting at Oaks Road because they were mentioned in the email. And I wanted them to know. The resident was challenged online for her upcoming candidacy as a municipal councillor. And in the town of Grimsby, and not for making the complaint, which I did not share with anyone. So these complaints are private and confidential, and so no one knew the complainant and this person who sent the email were the same person because the complaint was confidential. And the complainant was then challenged on Facebook for her ambition to be elected as a town councillor, not for making the complaint. And so the candidate who wants to be a town councillor should be prepared if they want to be elected. It is ruthless. And so you might say that this should or shouldn't be done, and you have to hear from everybody. And people, trust me, there's some former councillors and future councillors sitting in the room right now, and they are ruthless in the way they, especially by email. And nobody sends you, typically people don't send an email that you're doing a great job, even when you're trying really hard. But they are no holds barred what you've done. They want to tell you how they feel about it, and it's typically not polite. So if a person who is stood for this position maybe they want to reconsider if that's the spot for them. And the other thing I want to talk about just briefly is that when you're a councillor, if you're a councillor in the town of Grimsby, we can't make anonymous or confidential complaints. You have to identify yourself as the complainant. So at least one of the complainants in this complaint is on the ballot for the election in Grimsby. And the time for transparency is now. And they should not be making these complaints anonymously. And I want to make a reference to Michael Maynard's report. And some of you have it with you, some of you maybe have it online. But Michael Maynard says at the end of page 22 and the beginning of page 23, he says, it's clear the complainants and respondent approached the issue of the Ottawa convoy, protest I called it, not the convoy, I wasn't part of the convoy, from opposite perspectives. The complainants are squarely against the protest, and the respondent is supportive of it. My reading of these matters leads me to the conclusion that at least some portions of this complaint appear to be rooted in basic political disagreement. And so, not only is there a candidate who's involved in this, there's also there's just a general disagreement. And there are people who agree with me. There were hundreds of thousands of people in Ottawa who feel the same. And there are people from Grimsby, there are people from my ward who I saw in Ottawa. And there are people who spoke supportively towards me and towards my participation. And there was people who spoke against me. And so I just wanted to put that out there, that some of this, and some of these complaints, it's a big report. It's 44 pages, 38 plus a 6-page addendum. But the complaints, it was like, there was a woman that spoke and said, women are the life givers of all nations, and men need to protect their women from the tyranny of government. And they said that was offensive to women. And it was a woman, an Indigenous woman, who said it. And then afterwards, she went on, she said, I would bless all of you if I could individually. She said, but I can't, there's too many. She said, so except, she said, I have the sage and I have the feather. And she was an Indigenous woman, and she was talking about the worth of everyone in this large crowd of people. She was not. She was a woman herself. She was not being offensive to women. And they were just scraping at this. And then there was a song. It was played by someone else on the street. People were like, yeah, it was crazy. It was freezing cold. And the song says, I got passion in my pants, and I ain't afraid to show it. I'm sexy, and I know it. And the song is by LMFAO. It's a pop song. It's on the radio. It was number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. And it's not offensive. It's kind of silly, right? But these are some of the complaints that they said, because anything to make me the bad guy. And so I supported the cause of this protest, which was ending these mandates, which were, at the time, in January and February, the government required a passport. You had to show papers to get into a building. And you had to show papers to get into the arena. And we have a security guard here who's done a great job for us, and everybody likes him, except for the people who weren't allowed in the building. They didn't, I presume, like him too much. But he's done a terrific job, and that's awesome. But there were residents. They had to keep paying their taxes. In fact, they partially paid that security guard's salary for him to tell them that they couldn't come. And for whatever reason, maybe it's medical, maybe it's spiritual, there are people who didn't get vaccinated, and they weren't allowed to go to restaurants. They weren't allowed to come to the arena. Their kids aren't allowed to participate in camps at Tim Hortons because of a medical choice. And I am...
I think the members...
Point of order has been called. Councillor Sharp. Councillor Vardy, point of order.
I know you're not done. Point of order, I believe the councillor has drifted somewhat off topic, and it's turning into a campaign speech. So if he could just get back onto topic, that would be good.
Councillor Sharp, if you could stay on topic, it'd be appreciated. Thank you.
My campaign is municipal. These passports were provincial and federal. But I want to make reference to, this happened on May the 14th, and Michael Maynard made some references in his report to a lot of media outlets. And he said that I should know or ought to have known certain things were illegal. Based on the CTV News, there's 3 articles here. The Ottawa Citizen, there's an article. There's 2 YouTube videos. There's 2 CBC articles. Toronto Sun, the Financial Post, the National Post, Yahoo.com. And there is a City of Ottawa noise bylaw and the declaration of emergency from the mayor. But one of them, the article actually refers to an injunction from the Superior Court. And he refers to the news article, but he doesn't refer to the Superior Court ruling. And in the Superior Court ruling, here on item 6, there's 2 Superior Court rulings. It says that provided that the terms of this order are complied with, the respondents and other persons remain at liberty to engage in peaceful, lawful, and safe protest. So as I said, that I was opposed to the federal government and to some extent to the provincial government's handling of these vaccine mandates and other restrictions, and I was there to protest that, and I was allowed to be there. I was there peacefully, and I was there lawfully. I paid the hotel. They welcomed me as a guest. The parking was open. The hotel was open. The restaurants accepted my money, and I'll qualify for the tax credit. Like, it's a completely legal thing that I did. On one weekend, I brought my family and several other families with me. We brought our kids. It was great, except the hotel pool was closed for COVID. That was a nuisance. But like, we bought dart guns for the kids. They ran around.
Councillor
They had
Sharp,
walkie-talkies.
can I ask you to stay on topic, please?
Yeah. So I'm veering off a little. What I'm saying is, this wasn't like this evil thing. You might have seen it on the news. I didn't do this evil, awful Ottawa thing. I went to Ottawa, our nation's capital, to be heard by our government. And the Prime Minister essentially put his fingers in his ears, and he said, la, 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 I don't know, there's no one there, it's a fringe minority, and then more people came, and I didn't occupy. I came to Ottawa for the weekend, and then I left Ottawa, and then I came back on the following weekend, and then I left Ottawa, and I came back on that next weekend, and each time they raised the rates of the hotel rooms, and I continued to pay, and I continued to attend peacefully and lawfully. And regardless of what the CTV News said, the Ontario Superior Court said that peaceful, lawful, and safe assembly there was allowed. I was at liberty, is the word that they used. And that's something that I have a right to do. And so I understand, Mr. Maynard, that I have, over and above the law, I have a code of conduct to follow. Right? And I am willing to accept some of the findings in his report, and I'm willing to apologize. But a 90-day suspension of pay, $5,375. This is what Mayor Jordan has brought to us today. 90 days. The Integrity Commissioner says we need a harsh ruling. He says 15 days. He says that will really teach everyone a lesson, including the other councillors. Mayor Jordan and Councillor Freak, they come and they say, you know what, $900 is not enough. What we need is $5,375. That will teach them a lesson. It's actually the pay for the rest of the term. All right, and this is vindictive on the part of the mayor.
Councillor Sharp. We have order. Order. I'll make the announcement. Just wanted to make an announcement. We are supposed to start a public meeting at 6 o'clock. We'll be postponed a little bit to try and get through some of the comments here in regards to this matter. So, what's our time now? 6:06. So we'll be delayed for a little bit. Thank you, Councillor Sharp.
Thank you.
Mayor Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. So we've heard from a number of councillors. Some councillors have no problem with forwarding an email from a constituent. When we're given an email as a councillor, we're not supposed to forward it, not supposed to send it on Facebook Messenger.
Order. Let's no cross-talking. Order.
Point of order.
Point of order has been called. Councillor Vardy.
That's not true. That is not true. Excuse me?
Let's stay on topic, please.
That is not true. A reporter asked me for a quote, as they did ask Councillor Ritchie, was printed verbatim, as was, I assume, Councillor Ritchie's.
Order. Let's continue. Mayor Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. So, as I said, sending an email and forwarding an email, whether on Facebook Messenger, it's just not what you do as after you've taken your fiduciary duty and your oath to be a councillor. It's very clear in there that our emails are to be considered private, and they shouldn't end up in anyone's hands that they shouldn't be in. And Councillor Sharp said he didn't do it vindictively, he didn't do it egregiously, but what happened by doing it caused harassment to this individual. And he says that, okay, they need a thick skin for running for office. Well, that's not his call. Forwarding these emails, that's not his call. And the Integrity Commissioner ruled that way. Councillor Sharp has a long history of not following.
Point of order has been called. Councillor Sharp. Yeah, I think that's correct, Mayor Jordan, that the Integrity Commissioner did state that he did not make a ruling on that matter.
So
Can we have decorum, please? We have order in.
So he wasn't given the chance to conduct an investigation. So, again, Councillor Sharp doesn't follow rules. Just last meeting, the meeting today, we're procedurally supposed to appoint Councillor Nick DeFlavio to fill Councillor Bothwell's position. Councillor Sharp wanted to do it at that meeting on the fly, to break with procedure. I don't believe he has.
Can we have order, please? Order.
I think it's very relevant.
Order. And to stop some of the crosstalk, can we just stick to the IC report, please?
All right. So, obviously, he continues not to follow rules, so I'll end it there.
It's the mayor's job to enforce the rules of the meeting. If I'm not following the rules, the mayor has to stop the meeting. It's the mayor's job to enforce the rules of the meeting. To the clerk, that's the mayor's job. And look at our code of conduct.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. I will ask Mayor Jordan at this time there's no evidence, nothing conclusive, it's opinions about individuals following procedure. So I'd ask you refrain from making further comments towards
Very much, but we were all at that meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Cadwell, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Listening to all the comments around, again, I'm just going to maybe repeat myself again that I think the 90-day suspension is a little heavy for the actions of Councillor Sharp. I don't agree with what he did in Ottawa. I asked him, why I met with why Councillor Sharp went the other 2 times to Ottawa. So again, that to me shows that he was supporting it, and I'm not in favor of that. But I do feel that 90-day pay suspension is very heavy. That's why I asked the Integrity Commissioner about the 15-day pay suspension. So I just think 90 days is just is too heavy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cadwell. I see, Maynard, I have a couple questions of clarity that I'd like to ask myself. The first is in your addendum on page 3, when you answered to a question that you stated, the fact remains that the councillor attended, publicly supported, and encouraged an illegal occupation That choice has consequences. I have recommended what I believe those consequences should be pursuant to the town's code of conduct. I guess my point of clarity on this is, how did you determine that it was an illegal occupation?
Sure. So, obviously, there were numerous statements by law enforcement, by the governments of Ottawa and Ontario. I didn't really view, I mentioned it, I think once or twice perhaps, but it wasn't really relevant what the federal government had said because their own invocation of the Emergencies Act didn't take place until after the following weekend, the final weekend rather. So when I was looking at it, I saw that there was a state of emergency declared in the city of Ottawa. There was a state of emergency declared across the province. Law enforcement, relevant law enforcement, had referred to it as being illegal and unlawful and had indicated that they had difficulty with enforcement, despite the fact that they found it to be an illegal and unlawful occupation. There were numerous arrests that had been made. Many bylaw infraction notices had been given by police and by bylaw. So it was clear to me that there were certainly unlawful or illegal activities taking place, and that by his broad support of the occupation, of the protest, and I use the word occupation simply because that's what it has been referred to as by the relevant authorities and governments, that his broad support of that failed to recognize that numerous illegal activities were in fact taking place. And I would also note that fairly recently there was in fact a conviction that was made with respect to one of the organizers who pleaded guilty, which is still a conviction.
Can we have order, please? Order.
So, in my view, based on the information that I had, in my view, based on the statements of law enforcement and the relevant governments, that in fact there were at least some illegal activities taking place and that the councillor broadly supported something which included numerous illegal or unlawful activities.
Thank you. So,
which is different, by the way, just to be clear, which is different, by the way, from me suggesting that the councillor himself broke the law, which, as you'll note, I did not suggest in the report.
correct. So that's what I read in the report. You did state that the councillor did not break the law. But I still have a point of clarity on the illegal occupation. I noticed in the report here on page 24, you did state, as evidenced by the fact that the noise issue was later subject to a court injunction and other legal actions, and you quoted 21, which is a class action lawsuit suing convoy organizers, donors, truckers for $306 million, and coming from City News Ottawa. Did you read the Lexi Lee versus the convoy protesters injunction?
I have read parts of it. I didn't dedicate myself to reading through the entire thing. My reference to it wasn't necessary to do so. The purpose in me referring to this was with respect to the issue of whether or not the residents of Ottawa found it to be harassing, not whether or not that was an illegal activity.
Thank you. So I guess again, with the illegal activity, so that decision was on February 7th, and that was made by the Honorable Hugh R. McLean. And there was a second.
Just a point of order. You're kind of entering into the debate, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just asking for clarification on what deemed it an illegal occupation. So I was just curious where he got it, and I've heard already that it was in his opinion, and politicians' opinions, and law enforcement's opinions, but we have a couple rulings from courts that could turn that over in regards to. So I just wanted to ask about if you've also read the Ontario Supreme Court Justice filed on February the 14th, and that's Ottawa against the unknown individuals.
Point of order. I think you're guiding this thing.
But I'm not guiding anything. I'm asking,
Yes,
trying to
you are.
clarify
You're
an illegal
guiding
occupation.
You're guiding the debate, and I think this is called debate, not.
I'm asking for an illegal occupation.
Yes.
And I'm
So sorry.
asking if he's read these two decisions. I think it's very important.
I think you're debating here, Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you. Thank you. Point in order, Councillor Frey. So I see, Mayor, just curious if you read the second decision that came out 7 days after the first one, and after the Premier had declared a state of emergency.
Yeah, I don't recall whether I read it or not, to be honest with you. I've read a lot of stuff related to this and other things, but
Fair enough.
if it's not referenced in my report, I don't believe it's relevant. If it was relevant, I would have referred to it.
Well, thank you. And that's where the 2 points that I'm making is, Councillor Vardy, go ahead.
Can we please stick to what's in the actual report?
Yes.
As opposed to bringing in
Absolutely.
Extraneous
Absolutely. Thank you.
materials. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, you stated in your report that Councillor Sharp did not break the law. And this second decision is important
Point of order
because
again,
it
Mr.
says
Chair.
all the bylaws.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, you are really,
All the
really,
bylaws.
really in the midst of this
Councillor
debate.
Frake,
And you've got to
stop interrupting the chair.
No, you are interrupting.
Stop interrupting the chair.
This is a debate. You are not.
I am
part of the
not
debate.
debating.
And you're asking questions that are,
So I'm asking a question.
that's part of the debate.
So these
I'm
are,
sorry.
I don't know if you've read it or not, but these are the actions that they would deem to be illegal. And so I know you didn't read it, so I think it's important, because I think the importance of it is that this was made by the second highest judge in the Ontario Supreme Court. So I guess my point of clarity, again, is, was this an illegal occupation? And what I've heard so far is that, depending on people's opinions, it can be an illegal occupation. However, we have information saying that if the court orders are followed, then individuals remain at liberty to engage in a peaceful, lawful, and safe protest. Councillor Vardy, you had comments?
Yes, I'm just going to say that according to my friends who live in Ottawa, it certainly wasn't peaceful. It was quite loud.
Can we have order? Can we have order, please? Can we have order, please? Can we have order, please?
I'm sorry, honking horns is not quiet. So I would like to make a friendly amendment to Mayor Jordan's motion that we go with the Integrity Commissioner's recommendation of 15 days. Will you accept? Can we have decorum, please, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, can we have order, please? Sorry, I was just clarifying with the clerk. So in order to make a friendly amendment, the mover and seconder would have to agree to that.
I'm prepared to reduce it to 15. I said I'm prepared to reduce it to 15, so yes, I will accept that as a friendly amendment, because the report is incomplete as it stands. It hasn't investigated everything.
Thank you. Can we have order in the room, please? We're trying to get through this, so I know that people are going to get very passionate about these things, but please, can you just allow the process to take place? So the mover has agreed to amend the motion to 15 days. The seconder?
I'll go along with that.
Can I call the question, please?
So, Councillor Sharp's going to speak first, if you'd like to speak, and then we'll ask the question to be called.
Thank you. I do want to speak. I'll try to be as quick as I can. I only have 3 or 4 minutes on this one, but so I did want to.
Can I just have a second here? Councillor Sharp did have his hand up first before someone was called the question, so I just want to ask on procedure, if calling the question overrules individual speaking.
I believe I have the floor.
She called a point of order. You can't make a motion during a point of order. Then you didn't have the floor. If you weren't given the floor and you didn't call a point of order, you
Can I
didn't.
have order, please? I'll talk to the clerk here. Councillor Sharp, we're going to put a motion on the floor to call the question. It requires a 2/3 vote. And I'll ask the clerk to call for a recorded vote. Do we have a seconder? You put the motion on the floor, so is there a seconder to call the question? Councillor Frake. Is this a point of order, point of clarity, Councillor? Go ahead, Councillor Cabell.
Thank you, Chair. So if the 2/3 vote doesn't go through, then we just go back to the letting, and then we go back to the, just for everybody so we understand how that.
That is correct. So if 2/3 is not obtained here, we'll go back to debate. And when debate is finished, then we will go back to the amended motion.
That's-
Moved by Councillor Vardy, seconded by Councillor Frake. Resolved that question be called in regards to the Integrity Commissioner Report IC 16634-0222. Recorded vote.
Councillor Dunstall?
No.
Councillor Frake?
Yes.
Councillor Cowell?
Nope.
Councillor Ritchie?
No.
Councillor Sharp?
No.
Councillor Vane?
No.
Councillor Vardy?
Yes.
Mayor Jordan?
Yes. Yes.
That's defeated.
Councillor Sharp, you have the floor.
Okay, thanks. Since this report is about me, I'd like to take my second opportunity to speak to this, and I did speak once already. To Michael Maynard and to the rest of my colleagues, in the report, Michael Maynard says a few things that were already mentioned. I won't reiterate them, but he says that I didn't participate in the illegal activities, and he says it doesn't appear that I did, and I'm telling you that I didn't. But he also says that even if he did not specifically engage in the more extreme aspects of harassing activity, and that's also true, I didn't engage in those more extreme aspects of harassing activity. I stayed in the hotel, and I went outside, I brought my camera, and I videotaped, and I showed people, I said, look at what's happening here. And people were watching it, and it wasn't people from Ottawa. I get those statistics on my Facebook page, and that's why I use a page, not a profile. And the residents, the people that watch are from Grimsby and Beamsville and Hamilton and St. Catharines, and I don't think I have any following from the city of Ottawa. And so the videos that I posted, people in Ottawa, I'm not sure even knew that they existed. And I posted them for the people in Niagara to see what was happening in Ottawa. But Michael Maynard, he refers to these things, the declaration of emergency from the province of Ontario, and I have it here, and the pith of the argument, or that's not an argument, the pith of the declaration, the Premier says, whereas the interference with transportation infrastructure, including essential trade corridors and other critical infrastructure that is currently occurring in locations throughout the province, prevents the movement of people and the delivery of essential goods and services, constitute a danger to major proportions that could result in serious harm to persons and substantial damage to property. What he's talking about is the transportation infrastructure. And when he declared this, he also used it to remove the people from the highways at the bridges that were blocking, I don't know, $1 billion a day or something in trade that was going across the borders. And that happened in Alberta. Well, I guess this would only be referring to Ontario. But although it says various places across the province, it's not talking about Ottawa. And so the Premier, so his reference to the Premier's declaration of an emergency is a declaration to the interference with transportation infrastructure, the movement of goods. And so also, when the mayor, because some of you guys might not be aware, and I'm sure that Michael Maynard might be aware, I don't know, but a declaration of emergency is done by the mayor. It's not done by the council. It's unilateral. One person, the mayor, Mayor Jordan, could stand up right now and say, I declare an emergency in the town of Grimsby. And in this declaration, which I have here in front of me, the mayor of Ottawa, Jim Watson, says, whereas, a bunch of stuff. And one of these whereas statements, he refers to it as this illegal occupation shows no signs of ending. All right, but you can't just declare something into law. And this is one person who referred to it as an illegal occupation. And then from that, the news outlets, the media outlets, they took off. And Michael Maynard in his report cites 14 different newspaper articles and 2 YouTube videos and they're online media. And it's like, and he says that because these, I ought to have known this was illegal. But they're referring to a person who's referring online to a thing. It's like, I don't necessarily trust the media. And I felt that I was in Ottawa as a legal and lawful protester. And so then we're going to move to a vote right now. They're going to vote for a 15-day suspension of my pay. And the Integrity Commissioner says in his report that it is either a suspension of pay or a reprimand, like an apology. And I'm asking my colleagues to consider, I am willing to apologize and to turn down the suspension of pay and for 15 days. And I will make an apology whether I'm forced or not.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Any other comments? Seeing or hearing none, we will call the question.
Recorded vote, please.
Mayor Jordan's requested a recorded vote. So moved by Mayor Jordan, seconded by Councillor Freak. As is noted, Mayor Jordan's left the chair. Whereas a member of council is held by virtue of their office to a higher ethical standard of behavior and subject to the principles and rules set forth in the Town of Grimsby's Code of Conduct. And whereas it has been determined by the Integrity Commissioner that Councillor Sharp participated in, supported, broadcasted, and promoted in an illegal occupation in the city of Ottawa. And whereas the Integrity Commissioner concluded that Councillor Sharp, through those actions, contravened sections 4.1a, d, e, and 14.2 of the Code of Conduct. And whereas an email on a separate matter from the complainant in that investigation addressed to council and the town CAO was distributed by Councillor Sharp to a person or persons unknown. And whereas that email and identifying information about the complainant was subsequently circulated to a protest group's social media page, resulting in harassment, abuse, and defamation of the complainant. And whereas Councillor Sharp would have known or ought to have known that circulating the email would be detrimental to the complainant and their privacy, and whereas Councillor Sharp obstructed the Integrity Commissioner's investigation into the circulation of that email and the issue of reprisal, and whereas Council in the Town of Grimsby respect residents' diverse viewpoints and supports the right to privacy and right to be free from harassment, and whereas the totality of Councillor Sharp's actions in this matter are egregious and not consistent with council's guiding principles and reflect negatively upon council and the municipality. Therefore, be it resolved that council receive the Integrity Commissioner's investigation report IC-16634-0222, an addendum dated July 2nd, 2022, and that as per section 233.4 in brackets 5 of the Municipal Act 2001, a suspension of Councillor Sharp's remuneration as a member be imposed for a period of 15 days. Let's record a vote.
Councillor Dunstall?
No.
Councillor Frake?
Yes.
Councillor Cowell?
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie?
No.
Councillor Sharp? Cannot vote on this matter. Councillor Vane?
No.
Councillor Vardy?
Yes.
Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
Sorry, let me just do that. 4-3, yeah, that's carried.
Seeing how this part of the agenda has concluded, I'll ask Mayor Jordan if he would like to take a seat back.
Just now that I'm back at the chair, given the fact that we're already 35 minutes overtime on this special council meeting, what is council's will? Because we have a statutory planning meeting coming up next that was supposed to start at 6. Are we going to continue with the rest of the meeting, or will we defer the rest of the business to our August 2nd meeting? Council's thoughts?
I would like to continue.
Councillor Ritchie.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It is an appointment of a position, and I don't think it would take longer than 10, 15 minutes, so I would like to proceed if that's just my opinion, if that's okay.
Okay.
So I'll put a motion to proceed with the rest of the agenda.
I'll second that.
All right. So we have Councillor Ritchie as the mover, Councillor Vardy as the seconder. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Vardy. Resolved that report TC 22-15, appointment for Ward 4 councillor dated July 18th, 2022 be received, and that council appoint Nick DeFlavio as councillor to the town of Grimsby in Ward 4 for the remaining of the 2018 to 2022 term of council, and that council approve bylaw 22-56, being a bylaw to appoint Nick DeFlavio as a member of the council of the corporation of the town of Grimsby for Ward 4. Questions or comments? Councillor Sharp.
I just want to say welcome to Ward 4, Nick. We're happy to have you here.
Can I ask for a recorded vote?
Any further discussion? All right. Councillor Dunstall asked for a recorded vote. Yeah, Michael, thank you very much for your report and your clarification and your help with this matter. So you have a good evening, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just waiting to be dismissed.
Sorry.
That's fine. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So recorded vote, Councillor Dunstall?
Yes.
Councillor Frake?
Yes.
Councillor Cadwell?
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie?
Yes.
Councillor Sharp?
Yes.
Councillor Vane?
Yes.
Councillor Vardy?
Yes.
Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
That's carried. I gotta do these two first.
All right, need a mover and seconder for the bylaw. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Frake. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 22-56 and that same be read a first time. All in favor? It's carried. Need a mover and seconder for second and third reading. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Ritchie. Moved Moved by councillor Cadwell, second by councillor Ritchie. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 22-56, read a first time, now be read a second and third time, and finally passed, and the mayor and town clerk do sign and seal the same, and rule council to the contrary notwithstanding. All in favor? That's carried. Pardon? Yes, yeah, the clerk will declare you, but welcome, Nick.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll proceed with the declaration of office as per required in the Municipal Act. If I can have Nick DeFlavio come to the podium.
I, Nick DeFlavio, having been appointed to the office of Ward 4 Councillor to the town of Grimsby, do solemnly promise and declare that I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner. I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. And I make this solemn promise and declaration consciously believing it to be true, and knowing that it is of the same force and effect as if made under oath. And if I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And as it's an honor, even if it's for a short period of time, to represent the people of Grimsby, and I'll do my best to try to get caught up and be well studied on all the matters that come before council for the next few months. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, and I do appreciate that. Thank you, councillor. All right, the next meeting of council is scheduled for August 2nd, 2022, immediately following the committee of the whole. Now we need a mover and seconder for the confirming bylaw. Moved by councillor Dunstall, second by councillor Ritchie. Moved by councillor Dunstall, second by councillor Ritchie. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 22-57 and that same be read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Mover and seconder for second and third reading of the bylaw. Moved by councillor Ritchie, second by councillor Frake. Moved by councillor Ritchie, second by councillor Frake. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 22-57 read a first time, now be read a second and third time, and finally passed, and the mayor and town clerk do sign and seal the same, and rule council to the contrary notwithstanding. All in favor? That's carried. Meeting is adjourned. Good night, everyone.
Can you make an announcement? We'll start in 5 minutes.
Yeah, we're going to start our statutory public meeting at 6:45. Thank you.